All right, Sam, let's switch gears
Yeah,
here
that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
and
That would be really good.
go to Nebraska basketball. What I mean, what do you chalk up that Purdue game to? Is it the road woes? Like, what do you? Because that seems too easy, right? Just be like, oh, Nebraska's
Yeah.
bad on the road. Like, what do
Yeah.
you watch that game? What do you attribute it to?
Purdue's really good at home, but Purdue was really good yesterday, and Purdue's pretty good generally. And so, when they beat Purdue last year, I can't even remember how many threes they hit, but I'm going to say they hit 18 of them. Now, anybody can go back. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but Nebraska played out of its mind that night, and I was there because, I was at the game and wrote about it at the game. And as I recall, Nebraska played out of its mind offensively and hit a lot of shots, and so otherwise Purdue's been very difficult for Nebraska to beat. I think it was just a one-off. Nebraska's played a lot of tough games in a row. You pick your spots. The game they obviously circled and felt like they could win and almost did win was Iowa. Purdue is the hardest game on their schedule at Purdue, and so when they got down early, I think it was going to be hard to crawl out. Obviously, 104 to 68 isn't what you're looking for. You'd like 85-68, but they got to turn the page real fast because they're going to play a team on Thursday that, unless they beat UCLA tonight, is winless in the Big Ten or close to winless. And that team's dangerous because they have really good players. So, like Nebraska has to just kind of move forward.
I actually
and do what they got to do.
Without being all hyperbolic, I actually kind of think that this is must win.
It's very important.
I mean, if because you still have to have 9 or 10, 9 for sure, conference wins in on your resume. I think this one is huge. And listen, as the resident Rutgers honk here living in the state of Nebraska, I know this team like the back of my hand. It is absolutely must win, but I am terrified that they cannot stay in front of Harper Jr. So I don't so much worry about Ace Bailey just because Ace because his shot selection will help keep Nebraska in it. But man, as we saw yesterday, when you can't contain guards and keep them in front of you, this defense gets compromised in a hurry.
Yeah, that's very true. And
not to mention, he's done this. He's playing at an elite level for Painter. I mean, an elite level. And now that he's scoring, I mean, he's an absolute handful. And he's just out there. He's like Jason Williams or something. I mean, he's just having fun making plays and shooting any shot he wants to because he can free flow in that offense.
Yeah, it's fun to watch guards, as they mature. And now with college basketball being able to pay some players, a guy like Braden Smith is going to stay in college for 4 years and probably become a legend. Instead of having to feel like, well, I got to go to. It's kind of like Kalkbrenner. Like Kalkbrenner probably would have left if they didn't have an NIL thing, because there's not a lot of money to be made otherwise. But Kalkbrenner can stay, and Kalkbrenner is having an epic year, one of the great years in Creighton history, and I think Purdue, with Braden Smith is the same way. I think Nebraska. So what I wrote today in the Rewind is I totally appreciate Hoiberg wanting to build this thing on defense, feeling like we got the guys to do that, and that there's a gritty culture and a toughness, and everybody saw what they did against Creighton. I still feel like Hoiberg's on the genius end of the offensive coaching scale, and runs a lot of cool stuff. And well, they don't run necessarily a lot of sets, but their players know what to do, and they got to score more. They have to score a little bit better. They got to shoot it a little better. They're shooting about 33% from three. His NCAA tournament teams have never shot poorer than 35.7% from three. So they got to maybe shoot the three a little bit more. I do wonder. I'm going to be watching this on Thursday. I think I'll be at the game just as a spectator, not as a journalist. But I do wonder if the starting lineup gives you enough gives you enough offensive juice out of the gate. I think that starting lineup really needs Burke Buchengel to hit a 3 or 2.
Boy, did he teased me yesterday because the couple days before I'm like, he's the guy that offensively strikes me as having a much higher ceiling than what he's shown. So then he calmly steps out, he knocks down the pretty looking 3, and I was like, there we go. That's what I'm. Oh, that was
his shot's pretty. He has a pretty shot.
That was short lived.
And pretty. He has a prettier shot than Juwan Gary, and Juwan obviously is a great player.
And conversely, his first air ball also let me know that this wasn't going to go the way of how I wanted it to go.
Right. Juwan's going to be hot and cold from 3.
Yep.
He's never necessarily going to be the guy that you're like, all right, there's the guy that's going to be your second 3-point shooter in the starting lineup. It's Bryce. And then I think what you hope is that it's Burke Buchengel. They have a big lineup. That's a big lineup because you put me in there at center and all the rest. And then Morgan comes off the bench. But Connor Sejan comes in about 4 minutes into the game. And that's your best 3-point shooter. And he's been kind of hot and cold, right? He was good against Southern, and he struggled since then. But then, I think a Sejan is a key, and maybe Sam Hoiberg needs to play a little more. I remember the team 2 years ago, which was many people were like, yeah, this season is over. And then all of a sudden, Casey and Sam come out and start doing stuff that the guys that got hurt didn't do.
They're going to have somebody touch and harass and give up a couple fouls on Harp Jr. because his ability to get downhill, like you have to be pot committed. And we saw it, and it's going to be so different than Purdue where, they would play those little 2-man games and ball screens, and Nebraska would get caught in those little pin downs, and they wouldn't touch anybody with that little 2-man game. But now with Rutgers, you don't have to stay attached to shooters really. Like you can help will Nebraska. It's you were afraid to leave anybody from Purdue. But apparently that was okay for Nebraska because guys were getting uncontested 3s anyway. But man, it's a
much better team.
Yeah, but it's a vastly different defensive game for Nebraska on Thursday. Way different.
It is, yeah, very different. And it's not necessarily a matchup that Nebraska minds. I mean, Rutgers had a better team 2-3 years ago that went to the NCAA tournament. Nebraska, took that team apart. And some of it is the style that the Rutgers coach wants to play. So again, I think Nebraska is going to win on Thursday because I think their defense will do a good job. Just big picture, I think they got to shoot the ball a little bit better. And I know that Sam Hoiberg isn't as tall, but you might have to play him. He can hit a clutch 3 when you need one. And he's a guy that gets the team going. He may need more minutes, and I don't know. Maybe Connor Sejan needs to start. I doubt they're going to change anything because they like the lineup they have to start the game, and Burke Buchengel, if he's playing well, gives you that second spark plug as a shooter. But if he's not making shots, then you got to watch the starts of games, and Nebraska could be down 12-8 early on Thursday because they don't have a ton of firepower on the court.
I've never cheered so hard for a UCLA team as I'm cheering for them today. I want Rutgers to come in here kind of reeling. I don't know
what's going to happen.
I know it's just kind of how I think, and I think UCLA's favored.
Are they?
Yeah, I think so.
Sam, there's something I've been wondering about this Nebraska basketball team, kind of off and on all year. Is this team good enough? Just from a talent, length, athleticism standpoint, to hang their hat on being a defensive team in the Big Ten.
Right. I think so.
Do they have the horses for that?
I just think they got to shoot a little better. Yeah. I don't know if they had to play Purdue and Michigan State, twice, for example, like if the schedule was a round robin and
sure,
and they got those two teams twice, I wouldn't like their chances. But
I would say yes if they could get Mia to buy into some rim protection. Like you know what I mean? Just play a little tougher defensively in the post. Because they start him.
They do.
They sure do.
Yeah.
So it's like Just give me a little. Give me some. Give me a little. A hard
I
foul.
think they will take rim. What do you call it? Deterrence too. You know, so he deters people from going there, and so that's part of it. I think so, but I think they got to shoot just a little better. Like I said, I think they have to, score just a little bit more in order to feel like they're going to win, 9, 10, or 11 Big Ten games. There are certainly winnable games, but I'll tell you what, you look at their road schedule. Their road schedule is the opposite of Nebraska women's basketball. Nebraska women's basketball gets some of the weakest teams in the Big Ten on the road. They got one yesterday in Rutgers. They get one in Northwestern, and they get one in Purdue. All three of those teams are not very good. And Nebraska's women's team gets to play in those gyms, and that's an advantage. You want to play weaker teams on the road. Nebraska's situation is the reverse. They had to play at Michigan State. They had to play at Purdue. They had to play at Iowa, and Iowa's never easy to beat in Iowa. Iowa hammered Indiana. The easiest road game they have, I think, down the stretch is at Washington, and that won't be easy. I mean, Washington's, probably not as good as Nebraska, but they beat Maryland, and they almost beat Illinois at home, and that's a long trip. So Nebraska's road game slate is pretty tough, and they're going to have to find a way to win one or two of those on the road. And at this moment, the Washington game seems the most winnable, and I think maybe they play Northwestern on the road too.
Yeah, they do.
It's just going to be hard. Like they got to find a way to make some shots. In my rewind today, I put in their last 10 neutral site, which is the Big Ten tournament last year when they beat Indiana, or road Big Ten wins, they've shot 42% from three. That's it. To win on the road. You got to usually, well, at least if you're Nebraska, you have to make shots. They're not Kelvin Sampson's Houston Cougars. And so they're not. It's going to be hard for them to win 57-51 the way that Kelvin Sampson teams can. I think they're going to have to make shots. And fortunately, they got one of the best offensive coaches in the country. Like Fred Hoiberg has few peers in this area, and I do think they will get better as the season goes on. I think the only point I'm making is they probably need to get a little bit better because it's going to be hard to win road games if they don't make more threes on the road.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate the time as always, and I hope by the time we talk next week, you have a head football coach in Chicago.
And it's not Mike Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin. Why not?
Knock it off.
All right.
Marcus Freeman won't have played by then, so you might not have conducted that interview yet.
I'd love Marcus Freeman. That would be great.
So 88% of the football playing free world would love Marcus Freeman.
Chew on this.
Okay.
Let's say Ohio State beats Notre Dame in the national championship game, and Ryan Day says, "I'm done. I'm moving on. I'm going to the NFL." Guess who gets Marcus Freeman? Ohio State.
That's our guy, Sam McKewon. We appreciate it, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Take care.